You know what's strange? How people expect you to just bounce back like nothing happened. They tear you apart, drain every ounce of hope you had, twist your trust into something unrecognizable, and then look at you like you're defective because you're not grinning through the wreckage. Let me be clear about something. It's perfectly acceptable to fall apart. It's perfectly acceptable to feel the weight crushing your chest. This world, this circus of pretenders and manipulators, it was never designed for souls like yours. You actually cared. You actually gave without counting the cost. You stayed loyal to people who didn't deserve a fraction of your dedication. You listened to their endless complaints, sat with them through their darkness, defended them when they weren't even present. And here's the cruel joke. The moment you needed even a sliver of what you freely gave, they vanished. Complete silence, that hollow, echoing emptiness. But don't let that void swallow you. Let it educate you. Let it forge something unbreakable inside you. Let it grow teeth. So when someone tries to slice you open again, they'll discover you've already weaponized your suffering. They'll claim you've transformed. They'll whisper that you became distant, hardened, maybe even ruthless. But not one of them witnessed you collapsing behind locked doors. Not one of them stood beside you when your faith crumbled. When the people you trusted most revealed themselves as empty vessels filled with beautiful lies and hollow gestures. So I'll repeat it. It's acceptable. It's acceptable to feel everything simultaneously. That suffocating pressure, that crushing solitude, that fury simmering beneath your composed exterior. Welcome it. Don't flee from it. Don't numb yourself. Pain doesn't arrive to annihilate you. Pain arrives to wake you from your slumber. And believe me, you've been asleep far too long. You want to know what I discovered sitting in complete isolation, staring into emptiness with only my own chaos echoing back. I discovered that the most dangerous individuals aren't the ones carrying weapons. They're the ones who pretend to love you while sharpening their blade behind their back. They're the ones who feed on your light but abandon the room when your flame starts flickering. And when you're completely burnt out, when you're hollow and depleted, they examine you and declare, "You've changed." No, sweetheart, you didn't change. You evolved. There's a massive difference. You were never excessively emotional. You were never excessively kind. You were never excessively giving. You were simply surrounded by people who had absolutely no idea what to do with an authentic soul. That's the tragedy. You offered them the most genuine version of yourself, and they couldn't recognize its value until you disappeared. It's acceptable to walk away. It's acceptable to go silent. It's acceptable to become slightly colder, slightly wiser, slightly less available. That's not weakness. That's survival instinct. You see, there's tremendous power in silence. There's tremendous power in refusing to explain yourself anymore. People don't deserve your explanations. They had their opportunity to understand you, and they failed miserably. So now you communicate through your actions. You demonstrate what pain sculpted you into, not for revenge. No, that's too simplistic. Demonstrate what strength looks like when it's forged in flames and betrayal. Demonstrate what happens when the kindest soul grows tired of being trampled. And when they come crawling back, and they absolutely will come crawling back, don't let their tears confuse you. Don't let their sudden realizations make you soften. People don't transform their hearts overnight. They just grow uncomfortable when the person they used to control stops participating in their game. So let them cry. Let them regret. Let them feel the absence of your presence. And never lower your voice just because it makes others uncomfortable. Your story, your suffering, it was never meant to be whispered. Speak it loudly, even if your voice trembles. Because here's the truth: nobody wants to acknowledge. Nobody is coming to rescue you. Nobody is going to save you from your pain. You must claw your way out alone, bleeding, screaming, weeping. But when you finally rise, when your knees stop shaking and your eyes stop pleading, you'll realize you were always the storm. They just never saw it approaching. You know what nobody tells you? Sometimes strength doesn't resemble standing tall. Sometimes it's crawling forward, trembling, heart thundering in your ears, but still refusing to surrender. It's waking every morning with that ache still residing in your chest, pretending you're fine when your world's been burning for months. But you keep moving, not because you're healed, absolutely not, but because you've accepted that the pain might never fully leave. And that's where genuine power is born, in that quiet acceptance. When you stop begging for things to return to how they were. When you finally stop waiting for closure, for apologies, for people to acknowledge what they did to you. That's when you start becoming untouchable. Because the truth is, they saw what they did. Oh, they saw every tear, every time you tried to explain yourself, every moment you stayed silent, hoping they'd understand on their own. And they didn't care. They just watched. And when it benefited them, they applauded. When you cried, they disappeared. And now they want to act confused by your distance. They want to ask what happened, as if they weren't the earthquake that shattered you. But don't waste your breath. Don't explain the storm to people who ran when the clouds appeared. They only love the sunshine, not the thunder that saved your soul. You want to know what's truly sad? It's not the betrayal, not even the heartbreak. It's the realization that you were never difficult to love. They were just too selfish to try. And maybe they'll never admit it aloud. But deep down, they know. They know they messed up. They know they took advantage of someone rare. You were gold, and they had dust in their hands, pretending it was treasure. You were the safe place, the loyal one, the constant, but they confused your kindness for weakness. Thought you'd always be around. Thought you'd keep forgiving and forgetting, like your heart was made of rubber, until you stopped, until you went quiet, until your eyes changed. And that's when it hit them. They never had control. They had access, and access can be revoked without notice, without warning, without a goodbye. You don't owe explanations to people who knew what they were doing while they were hurting you. You don't owe comfort to the ones who made you question your worth. Let them deal with the silence they created. Let them sit in the emptiness they carved with their choices. Let them taste the same loneliness they gifted you so freely. You see, people don't want to admit this, but you don't have to hate someone to let them go. You don't have to be angry forever. You just have to wake up one day and realize that loving them is starting to feel like self-destruction. That staying is costing you your peace, your mind, your soul. And then you make the hardest decision of your life. You walk away, not because you don't care, but because you finally do. Because your heart deserves more than bare minimum, more than fake promises and inconsistent affection, more than "I love you," soaked in manipulation. You deserve someone who doesn't make you beg for clarity, who doesn't keep you guessing, who doesn't use your love as leverage. And until you meet that person, you give that love to yourself. You learn to sit in your own presence. You learn to hold your own hand when nobody else shows up. You become the safe place you were always trying to build for others. And yes, it's lonely. It's dark. Some nights, it feels like your chest is collapsing in on itself. But it's worth it, because for the first time, you're not abandoning yourself for the sake of someone else's comfort. I know what it's like to be the one who gives, the one who sees the good in people, even when it's buried under layers of brokenness. But let me tell you something, and I want you to remember it with every ounce of pain you've been through. You can't love people into being better. You can't bleed enough to fill the holes in their souls. That's not your job. That was never your role. Your responsibility is to heal, to rise, to take that pain they gave you and turn it into armor, not walls. Armor. There's a difference. Walls keep everyone out. Armor lets you step back into the world, guarded but still open, still breathing, still standing. And when they see you again, because they will, they won't recognize you. The old you died in the fire they lit. The new you walks through that same fire like it's just warm rain. And that's the most terrifying thing to them. You didn't just survive. You became something they can't reach anymore. You know, people love to talk about healing like it's a straight line, like it's some magical process where one day you're bleeding out and the next you're walking in sunlight again with a smile on your face. That's a lie. Healing is brutal. It's dark. It's messy. Some days you feel like you've moved on, and the next, you're on the floor, gasping like your chest got ripped open all over again. It comes in waves, and some waves hit harder than the first. And guess what? That's acceptable. You're not weak because you still miss someone who destroyed you. You're not stupid because their name still echoes in your thoughts. That's just the residue of love. The kind you gave too deeply, too blindly. But here's what you've got to understand. Just because you miss them doesn't mean you should go back. Just because it hurts doesn't mean it was right. Pain has a funny way of trying to convince you that chaos was comfort, but it wasn't. You were just addicted to someone who gave you little highs between long stretches of hell. That wasn't love. That was survival mode, dressed up in pretty words. And now it's time to break that addiction. Cold, ruthless, for your own sanity. You keep waiting for them to change, don't you? Keep thinking if you just stay a little longer, love a little harder, they'll finally become the version of them you believed in. But you're not in love with the person. You're in love with their potential. And that's dangerous. That's what keeps people trapped for years. Falling in love with an illusion while reality keeps stabbing them in the back. And let me tell you, potential doesn't keep you warm at night. It doesn't wipe your tears. It doesn't show up when you need someone to lean on. So stop making excuses for people who gave you reasons to walk away. Stop rewriting their story just to justify staying in their chapter. If they wanted to grow, they would have. If they wanted you, they wouldn't have left you questioning your worth. Love is not confusion. Love is not silence. Love is not pain with apologies attached like band-aids. Real love is peace. Real love is clarity. Real love feels like home, not a battlefield where you're always dodging emotional bullets. And listen, I know what they told you, that you were too sensitive, too emotional, too much. But let me ask you something. Too much for who? For people who barely know how to feel. For people who grew so comfortable in numbness that your depth scared them. That's not a reflection of you. That's a mirror exposing them. You weren't too much. You were honest. You were real in a world where most people play pretend. And for that, they couldn't handle you. But don't shrink to fit in their small, shallow world. Don't mute yourself to keep peace in places where you were never valued. If your light blinds them, let them cover their eyes. You weren't made to be small. You weren't made to whisper your truth just because it makes people uncomfortable. You were made to burn, to rise, to be loud in your existence. And if they can't handle that, let them leave. Watch the door close behind them and don't chase it. The saddest part, most people only realize your value after they've lost you, after the silence sets in, after the texts stop, after they scroll through old pictures and wonder where it all went wrong. That's when it hits them. You were the calm in their chaos. You were the consistency in their confusion. You were the one who showed up, who stayed, who cared. And now that you're gone, now they sit in the space where your love used to live, haunted by their own decisions. And you learn to live without their noise. You learn to smile without their validation. You rebuild yourself, not to prove anything to them, but to prove to yourself that you never needed their broken love to be whole. And that is where the shift begins, when your silence becomes louder than your presence ever was, when your absence teaches them what your presence never could. You ever notice how the ones you gave the most to were always the first to forget you? The ones you stayed up all night comforting, defending when they weren't even in the room, sacrificing your own peace just to see them smile. Those are the ones who vanish the fastest. No loyalty, no guilt, just silence, like none of it ever happened. And you sit there wondering, was it even real? That's the part that eats you alive, isn't it? Not just the pain, but the doubt, the confusion, the way they moved on, like you were just a phase, a chapter in a story they outgrew. And it leaves you staring at the ceiling some nights, tracing back every word, every look, trying to find the moment they stopped meaning it. But the truth is, they never meant it the way you did. You were all in. They were just passing time. You were building a future. They were enjoying the moment. That's the wound that takes the longest to heal. The one they left, not with cruelty, but with indifference. Because at least cruelty shows you mattered enough to be hated. Indifference, that's them telling you, without words, you never really mattered at all. But here's what they don't understand. People like you don't just give love. You build it, you craft it, you shape it with every late night message, every little detail you remember, every time you choose to stay when others would have walked. You're rare, and rarity doesn't get recognized by everyone. It takes depth to see depth, and most people are too shallow to dive that far. So what do? They label you too intense. They say you care too much. But that's because they never learned how to handle love that wasn't performative. You gave them real, and real exposes people. It shows them how empty they are. It forces them to confront parts of themselves they've been running from. That's why they push you away, because your presence makes their absence of soul obvious. And now you're sitting in the aftermath. You've seen too much, felt too deep. You've got bruises on your spirit that nobody claps for. You walk around smiling while your mind is still stuck in that one moment. The last goodbye, the final message, the silence that never got broken. You live there sometimes, don't you? In that space between what you deserved and what you settled for. But I'm here to tell you something. You're not broken. You're evolving. The pain didn't come to end you. It came to awaken you, to peel away the softness that kept you bleeding for people who never brought bandages. It came to force you into becoming the version of yourself you were always too scared to meet. The one who doesn't beg, the one who doesn't chase, the one who doesn't tolerate love that's half-grown and underfed. They thought you'd stay soft forever, that they could keep showing up half-present and you'd still hold the door open. But you changed, quietly, slowly, not with noise, not with revenge, but with awareness. You finally saw them for what they were. Lessons, not lifelines. You stopped blaming yourself for the way they couldn't love you. You stopped over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-giving. You stopped bending just to fit in spaces that weren't shaped for you. And maybe they didn't notice right away, but eventually they will. Eventually, they'll go to the place where your love used to live and find it empty, cold, locked, not out of spite, but because you finally realized you were enough without them, beyond them, despite everything they made you believe. And listen closely. When they come back around, and they will, don't let the guilt speak louder than the memory. Don't forget the nights you cried yourself numb. Don't forget the days you questioned your worth because of their silence. Don't forget how you begged God for answers, for peace, for something, anything to make the ache go away. You survived that. You rebuilt from that. You became stronger because of that. So don't hand your peace back to the person who stole it in the first place. You're not obligated to let them in just because they suddenly remember your name. Forgiveness is yours to give. But access, that's a privilege, not a right. You know what's funny? People always want you to forgive and move on, but not because they care about your healing. They just don't want to face what they did. Your silence reminds them. Your distance makes them uncomfortable. Your growth, that's the final nail in the coffin of their comfort zone. They want you to let it go. Not because they're sorry, but because your memory is a mirror. One that shows them the truth they've buried under lies and ego. And when you refuse to play dumb, when you don't answer their guilt-ridden messages, when you stop pretending like nothing happened, oh, that's when they get nervous. Because now they realize they lost access to something pure, not perfect, but real. You weren't flawless. Nobody is, but you were present. You loved fully, deeply, even when it hurt. And now that love's gone, pulled back into the vault where only people who earn it can find it again. And here's the brutal part. Most of them won't, because they weren't ready for it. They weren't built for it. They just thought you'd always be there waiting with open arms, like some permanent emotional rescue plan. But you've learned, you've changed, you've hardened, not out of hate, but out of necessity. Because kindness with no boundary becomes self-destruction. And now you're building walls with the bricks they threw at you. And it's about time. You ever sit in your room and just stare at the ceiling, wondering how you became the one carrying all the pain while they walk around like nothing happened, like your whole world wasn't turned upside down while they sleep just fine at night? That used to eat you alive, didn't it? That feeling that they got peace while you got pieces. But here's the truth you need to swallow. They're not at peace. Not really. People like that, they bury everything. They distract. They deflect. They project. But silence is a liar's nightmare. And every time they lay down in the dark, the truth crawls out from underneath their skin. They remember the way you looked at them when you still believed. They hear the words you used to say, not the loud ones, but the soft ones, the ones that came from your soul. That stuff doesn't vanish. It haunts. And while you're out here learning to stand again, they're slowly sinking into the weight of everything they broke, but never had the courage to admit. So don't waste your energy trying to show them you're better without them. Just be better, quietly, powerfully, without a need to announce your growth. Because real healing doesn't scream. It doesn't post updates. It shows up in the way your eyes stop looking for what was never yours. It shows up when your phone's dry, but your heart's still full. When you're alone, but not lonely anymore. And I know some nights still hit you out of nowhere. You hear a song, you catch a scent, you pass a place, and suddenly it's like your chest is caving in all over again. That's grief. Not just for the person, but for the version of you that loved them. For the dreams you built that never happened. For the future that died silently in your hands. But even that pain is a teacher. It tells you where your boundaries were too soft. It shows you the cracks in your armor. And most importantly, it reminds you of who you're never going to be again. You're not bitter. You're not cold. You're just done bleeding for people who only bring knives. You're done playing savior to souls that would watch you drown just to stay afloat. You've earned your peace. You've walked through hell. You've been quiet for too long. And now, every step you take is a rebellion against the version of you they tried to kill with their carelessness. And maybe you don't see it yet, but you're already rising. Not with fireworks, not with noise, but with quiet decisions that say, I deserve more. With boundaries that don't shake. With a heart that still hopes but doesn't beg. That's strength. That's survival. That's you. Still standing, still breathing, still here after everything. And if that doesn't make you dangerous, I don't know what does. Let me tell you something that most people will never admit out loud. Sometimes you heal in silence because you no longer have the energy to explain your pain to people who made it worse. You grow quiet, not because you've moved on, but because you're tired of screaming into rooms where nobody listens. Tired of proving your worth to people who saw your value and still chose to treat you like an option. And in that silence, something terrifying happens. You stop needing them, not out of hate, not out of revenge, but out of clarity. It hits you one night, between the tears and the loneliness and the overthinking. I can't keep doing this to myself. That's the moment the shift begins, when the part of you that kept hoping finally starts packing its bags. When your soul, bruised and blistered, whispers, enough, and nobody sees it, nobody hears it. There's no big dramatic goodbye, just distance, just space, just you putting the pieces back together in the dark, while the people who broke you wonder why you stopped answering. Like they didn't hand you the silence first. And isn't it sick how they make you feel guilty for walking away? Like you abandoned them. Like you were the problem all along. As if they didn't watch you fall apart trying to love them the right way. As if they didn't feel your energy shifting when your efforts went unreciprocated. You know what they loved most? Not you. They loved how you made them feel about themselves. They loved the light you shined on their broken egos. But the moment you needed that same light back, they disappeared. Cowards. Not because they couldn't love, but because loving someone deeply requires accountability. And accountability terrifies people who are addicted to control. So they spin the story. They make it look like you were too emotional, too reactive, too needy. But here's the real punchline. You were just asking for the bare minimum: loyalty, effort, clarity. And if that's too much for someone, let them go. Don't lower your standard just because someone else's love is shallow. You ever notice how the ones who claimed they loved you the most were the same ones who hurt you the deepest? Not because they were honest, but because they were inconsistent. One minute they're all in, and the next, cold, distant, dismissive. They love bomb you, pull you close, make you believe you found home, then leave without warning, and you sit there blaming yourself, thinking, maybe I did too much, maybe I loved them wrong. But no, they were never ready for real. That's the bitter truth. And the worst part, you ignored the red flags. Not because you were blind, but because you were loyal to the version of them you saw in your heart. The version they never became. The version they never even tried to become. That's why it hurts so much. You weren't grieving a person. You were grieving your own hope, your own loyalty, the parts of yourself you gave so freely to someone who didn't have the depth to receive it. But again, it's acceptable. You had to lose yourself to find the truth. And now you walk a little differently. You speak a little less. You feel a little more, but you hide it better. And people mistake that silence for healing. They think just because you don't talk about it, it doesn't haunt you anymore. But what they don't understand is that pain doesn't always scream. Sometimes it just lingers, like smoke in your lungs, like a shadow behind every new connection. But here's the thing, even if it never fully leaves, it still made you stronger, not colder, stronger. You've learned to recognize patterns. You've learned to listen to energy, not just words. You've learned that love isn't enough when respect is missing. You've learned that people can say they care and still treat you like you're disposable. And now you protect your peace like your life depends on it. Because in a way, it does. Your peace is the foundation for everything else. And anyone who threatens it, anyone who plays games with it, doesn't deserve access to you anymore. There's a version of you out there, the one that existed before they broke you, the one that still believed, still smiled without suspicion, still held out their heart with both hands, without flinching. And maybe you mourn that version sometimes. Maybe you wish you could go back to that softer time, before the lies, before the fake apologies, before you realized that loyalty doesn't mean anything to people who only love you when it's easy. But here's what they'll never understand. That version of you didn't disappear. He transformed. He evolved. You didn't lose your softness. You just learned how to protect it. You didn't stop loving. You just started being more careful with who you give it to. And if that means being alone more often, so be it. If that means fewer calls, fewer friends, fewer smiles, then fine. Peace over popularity, healing over habit. That version of you that used to overextend, over-explain, overthink. He was drowning in a sea of people who never cared whether he sank or floated. So, yeah, it's acceptable if you miss him, but don't you dare wish to be him again. He didn't survive what you did. He would have folded. He would have begged. But you walked through fire alone, without applause, without rescue. And now you carry that fire in your chest like a weapon, not to burn the world down, but to never be left in the cold again. You learned the hard way, didn't you? That most people only love you when it's convenient. that they'll romanticize your loyalty until it starts demanding effort in return, that they'll label you crazy the moment you call out their hypocrisy. It's not that you were too much, it's that they were too little and didn't want to admit it. So they left, or worse, they stayed just long enough to drain you and disappear. And you, with your bleeding heart and unshakable hope, kept giving, thinking maybe this time they'd see you. But they never did. They never wanted to. Because if they saw you, they'd have to see themselves too. They'd have to face how selfish they were, how they took and called it love. That's the kind of truth people run from. And when you finally set the boundary, finally closed the door, they called you the villain. Isn't that something? You become the bad guy in someone else's story the moment you stop letting them write yours. But don't apologize. Don't explain. Let them tell whatever story they need to protect their ego. You've got nothing to prove. Not anymore. And now you sit with this new version of yourself. Quieter, colder, sharper. You don't trust as quickly. You don't laugh as easily. You scan every word for hidden meanings. Every silence feels like a warning. And you hate that, don't you? You hate how the past has shaped your present, how their lies still echo in your thoughts. But that's part of the process. That's part of healing. You don't walk away from a battlefield without scars. And you were in a war nobody saw. You were bleeding emotionally while smiling in public. You were screaming on the inside while texting, "I'm fine." But now you know better. Now you don't hand out access like candy. Now you wait, you watch, you listen. And if someone doesn't match your energy, if they speak in riddles and love in conditions, you walk. No drama, no anger, just silence. Because the version of you that once begged for crumbs is done and knows it's better to be starving by yourself than feasting in the presence of cowards. So if today still hurts, if your chest still feels heavy, if the memories still crawl back like shadows under the door, let it hurt, let the tears come. But don't confuse this pain for weakness. It's the last fire burning away what's left of your attachment. It's the final goodbye your soul never got to say out loud. And when it passes, when you finally exhale, without their name attached to your grief, you'll see it clearly. You didn't lose them. You lost the illusion. You lost the idea of who they could have been. And in return, you found yourself. The version of you that doesn't beg to be chosen. The version that walks away. Not because he's bitter, but because he finally knows what he's worth. And you know what else? One of the hardest pills to swallow is realizing they never felt it like you did. While you were up at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling, with their name echoing inside your ribs, they were out laughing, sleeping peacefully, or talking to someone new, while you were breaking your own heart, trying to understand what you did wrong. They were already rewriting the story to make themselves feel better. That's the cruelty of it. You cared with everything in you. You poured your heart into a cup with no bottom. And they stood there watching it all spill out, acting like they didn't see the mess. And when you finally collapsed from the exhaustion of loving someone who never truly chose you, they acted surprised. They always do. Like they didn't notice the fire going out in your voice. Like they didn't feel you slipping away every time they dismissed your pain. But deep down, they knew. They knew you were holding the weight of the whole connection. They just didn't care because it was comfortable. You were convenient. You made it easy for them to feel wanted without putting in the work to deserve it. And when you stopped, when you finally had enough, they called you cold, heartless, distant. Because people hate when you start treating them the way they treated you. But let me tell you something, and I want this to sink deep. You are not the villain in your story. You're the survivor. The one who stayed too long, gave too much, believed too hard. You didn't walk away because you stopped caring. You walked away because nobody noticed that you were dying in the process. And now they miss your energy, not your soul. They miss the way you made them feel important. They miss the way you answered quickly, forgave quickly, loved deeply. But they don't miss you. They miss the benefits. That's the part you need to remember when they come crawling back with sad eyes and shaky voices. They don't want to fix it. They want to reset it. They want access again. Not because they've changed, but because you finally have. You finally stopped giving them the best parts of you while they gave you their worst. And that scares them more than losing you ever did. The silence after walking away, it's loud. It screams in your ears some nights. Not because you regret it, but because you feel everything. You always did. That's what made you different. That's what made you real. And yeah, sometimes you wonder if they ever think about you, if they ever replay the memories, if they ever wish they'd done things differently. But whether they do or don't, it doesn't change your truth. Your pain was real, your love was real, and your decision to leave, that was the strongest thing you've ever done. Because staying would have been easier, familiar, safe, but you chose yourself. And that choice, that's the beginning of everything. That's where the healing starts. Not when the pain stops, but when you stop choosing people who treat you like an afterthought. You ever meet someone so emotionally reckless that they confuse your healing with arrogance? Like your growth offends them, like your distance is disrespect. That's what happens when people can't manipulate you anymore. They twist the narrative. They act like you changed. And you did. You grew. You stopped making excuses for behavior that left you in pieces. You stopped replying to mixed signals. You stopped dancing for love that was never consistent. And now you walk differently. You speak differently. You even love differently. Quieter, stronger, slower. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. You know the cost now. You've paid it in tears, in breakdowns, in lonely nights that nobody saw. And the receipt, it's your peace, your standards, your refusal to be dragged back into chaos just because someone suddenly realizes you were the calm. So the next time you feel weak for still hurting, remind yourself it takes time to unlearn how to love someone who made your heart their home and then left without warning. It takes time to rebuild the parts of you they left hollow, but you will, one quiet day at a time. And the people who deserve you, they'll never make you question if you do. Let me ask you something. When did you stop being enough for them? Was it the moment you asked for more? The second you stopped pretending everything was fine? Or was it when they realized they couldn't control you anymore? Because that's usually when people start acting like you changed. They don't care that you were loyal. They don't care that you showed up even when it tore you apart. They only care that you stopped being convenient. They confuse your exhaustion with distance, your silence with disrespect. But what they'll never admit is that they were the reason you had to choose peace over connection. You gave chance after chance, explained when you shouldn't have had to, forgave what kept cutting you open. And still, Still, they looked at your love like it was disposable, like it was replaceable. But now they're choking on that choice. Because the second you walked away, they realized something they'll never admit. You were the best thing that ever happened to someone who never deserved you in the first place. And people love to preach forgiveness, don't they? Let go, they say. Don't hold on to bitterness. But what they don't understand is that your silence is forgiveness. Choosing not to expose them, that's grace. Choosing not to retaliate, not to seek revenge, not to scream what they did from the rooftops, that's mercy. But make no mistake, forgiveness doesn't mean access. It doesn't mean you owe them your time, your energy, or your attention ever again. You can forgive someone and still never want to see their face again. You can forgive them and still block them, walk past them, or leave their message unanswered. That's not pettiness, it's protection. Because the same hand that hurt you doesn't get to hold you again just because it's now shaking. Let them sit in the silence they created. Let them scroll through your old messages and realize they'll never get words like that from you again. Let them remember the version of you they'll never have access to, and let that be their consequence. You see, pain is a strange teacher. It doesn't show up in a classroom. It doesn't ask permission. It kicks the door in, tears everything down, and says, "Now rebuild." And you do. Slowly, painfully, one piece at a time. But this time, you build differently, smarter. You don't leave your door wide open anymore. You don't apologize for having standards. You don't accept half love just because your heart is tired. No. This version of you checks the energy. You watch people's actions. You stop falling for sweet words and start listening for patterns. And when someone shows you who they are the first time, you believe them. You believe them. Not because you're paranoid, but because the past already taught you what ignoring red flags costs. And you paid in full. And I know there are nights you still question yourself, still wonder if you overreacted, still hear their voice in your head, accusing you of being too much. But let me tell you something real. You weren't too much. They were just too little. You didn't ask for anything wrong. You asked for consistency, for clarity, for effort. And when someone's not built to give those things, they'll make you feel guilty for wanting them. That's their survival tactic, to twist your standards into flaws, to make you question the very things that make you valuable. But no more. Not this time. Not this version of you. You've come too far to let someone gaslight you back into believing you're unworthy. Because you are. You're worthy of love that doesn't confuse you. Conversations that don't leave you anxious. Effort that doesn't need to be begged for. And from now on, if someone can't meet you there, you walk, quietly, completely, without warning. Let them feel the absence. Let them drown in the silence they thought you'd never give them. You owe them nothing. Not a reply, not a goodbye, not closure. They had their chance. They burned the bridge, and now they're staring at the smoke, wondering why you're not rebuilding it again. But you're done building bridges for people who only ever taught you how to swim in pain. You're done being the savior, the fixer, the forgiver. Now you're the one who walks away, not out of bitterness, but out of love for yourself.